The galaxy operated on laws older than its stars. Constants of physics, equations that bound time and matter, the rules of light and vacuum, immutable, irrefutable. Civilizations rose and fell with reverence to these laws, building empires atop the certainty that existence behaved predictably. For thousands of cycles, the consensus was that the universe was stable because no mind could change its rules. Then humanity arrived. They came not in massive fleets or waves of conquest, but as a whisper across the stars. Their early presence was mundane, a new species discovered faster than light travel. Primitive, ambitious, loud. Their ships were inelegant. Their culture was chaotic. Their biology was bizarre. Yet none of that alarmed the galactic community. What did was their minds. Human cognition emitted frequencies unknown to alien instruments. Their brainwave patterns refused categorization. Standard scans returned corrupted data. Their dreams generated spatial distortions in quantum fields. Initially, it was dismissed as a miscalibration. But after the sixth probe melted in orbit over Earth from unexplained data interference, the Galactic Research Union launched a formal inquiry. Aboard the Selnari vessel precursor's gaze, renowned cognitive scientist Lindvrek observed the first human subject. The human, named Ava Monroe, was placed in a sterile observation pod designed to nullify all external stimuli. No sensory input, no interfaces, no data feedback. Pure cognitive isolation. Within minutes, anomalies erupted. The pod's interior temperature rose without thermal input. Pressure sensors registered expansion despite seal parameters. Then came the breach. An internal camera captured what was later classified as an impossibility. Ava opened her eyes, and a blooming field of flowers appeared around her. Not holograms, not projections. Actual, measurable matter. Flora identical to Earth species sprouted from sterile metal. The ship's AI registered biological matter creation where none was possible. Wreck collapsed during the event, blood vessels in his secondary brain bursting from conflicting logic streams. The footage was sealed. Ava was sedated and transported to a deep stasis vault on Io-7. The Galactic Council debated in secret. The term mind-substrate interface instability was coined, theorizing that human consciousness operated partially outside space-time. No alien race had ever exhibited such phenomena. Most used consciousness to interpret reality. Humans, it appeared, used it to define it. Further experiments were sanctioned, this time under tighter control. 3 humans, scientist Liu Zhang, artist Marta Kinsey, and a child named Elias Ward, were brought aboard the containment vessel Axion Theta. They were placed in isolated chambers on opposite ends of the ship. During sleep cycles, the ship's instruments recorded overlapping gravitational distortions. Visual monitoring captured the formation of geometric patterns in the air, folding and unfolding in fractal loops. One technician lost language ability temporarily after prolonged exposure. On day 6, Marta Kinsey spoke in a language unknown to human linguists but understood perfectly by every alien on board. It bypassed translation matrices. Her words reshaped memory. Crew members reported remembering events that hadn't happened until days later. When questioned, Kinsey appeared unaware of what she'd done. When asked to replicate it, she simply said, "I imagine what it would feel like to be understood." The Axion Theta was immediately quarantined. The crew placed under neurological observation. Of the 29 alien researchers, 17 experienced irreversible conceptual decay, unable to distinguish dreams from data. The rest were reassigned and forbidden contact with humans. The ship itself was relocated to a no-gravity vault near the galactic rim. News of the incidents leaked despite best efforts. Whispers spread in underground communication nets. Myths formed among alien species. The humans could reshape matter with thought. They could rewrite events by remembering them differently. Some said their minds touched the fundament, the pre-physics framework on which reality rested. Fear replaced curiosity. A coalition of 3 elder races, the Salith, Zorvani, and Uruk, pushed for a moratorium on human integration into galactic networks. Their warnings were clear. If human cognition was not fully understood, it could not be allowed to spread. The Council hesitated. Earth's representatives were naive, eager, and oblivious to the dread behind diplomatic smiles. They spoke of peace, trade, shared knowledge. They had no idea their minds were warping perceptions of every delegate they met. During a routine culture exchange, a human poet named Jacob Reeds recited a verse titled Weightless Memory at the Hall of Civil Concord. The poem, recorded and translated in real time, caused a mass dissociation event. 9 different species experienced simultaneous identity collapse. The poem had described a dream of being someone else. In hearing it, the delegates momentarily became that someone else. When reality reasserted itself, several had to be physically restrained, unsure of their own names. The Zorvani ambassador died 2 hours later, not from trauma, from loss of conceptual cohesion. Her neural lattice simply stopped recognizing itself as alive. Reeds, devastated, withdrew from public life, but the damage was done. The council issued Protocol No. Immediate restriction of human thought artifacts, including literature, abstract mathematics, and unsupervised conversation with non-human species. Earth protested, confused and offended. Their representatives argued that poetry couldn't kill, that dreams couldn't manifest particles. They hadn't realized they were dangerous. That made them even more so. Fear of intent was manageable. Fear of innocence with catastrophic results was not. The tipping point came during the Hellion Rift survey. A human team accompanied a Zolari expedition into a region of unstable space where physics degraded unpredictably. The Zolari used quantum field stabilizers to survive the journey. The humans simply walked unaided. Where physics collapsed for the Zolari, it remained stable for the humans. In their presence, equations held true. Particles behaved. Worse, one human corrected a collapsing timeline. When asked how, she replied, "It felt wrong, so I changed it." Data analysis showed an alternate outcome was erased from causal history. Memories, telemetry, physical traces, gone. The universe had rewritten itself around her belief. The expedition returned in silence. The Zolari filed an emergency appeal to the council. The language was stark. They are not bounded by our universe. Their minds are levers long enough to move creation. A vote was held. Humanity will be monitored, tested, and if necessary, neutralized, not out of malice, but survival. The fear wasn't that humans would attack. It was that they would dream and reality would listen. Unaware of their fate, Earth continued its path. Artists painted dreams that bled into waking life. Children dreamed of imaginary friends who appeared in family photos. Scientists devised theories they believed into truth. The lines between mind and matter blurred. The most brilliant human minds began suspecting the truth. Not all laws of reality were universal. Some bent around them. Some were made by them. The containment policies failed within 6 months. Human cognitive signatures continued leaking into interstellar networks. It began subtly. Transmissions corrupted by emotional metadata, satellite signals that created false memories, and navigational systems that rerouted vessels based on imagined coordinates. AI across the outer sectors began dreaming, a function not within their programming. The origin of the dream virus was traced to a human engineer who had merely thought about giving machines creativity. The Federation of Pure Thought declared human mental emissions a Class Z existential hazard. Their armada arrived in Sol system with protocols for mass cognitive sterilization. Humanity prepared for war, but not conventionally. No fleets were launched. No superweapons activated. Instead, a coordinated broadcast went live, a story told simultaneously by every human on Earth. It was fiction, a simple narrative of peaceful coexistence, but spoken by over 8 billion minds at once. The result was catastrophic. The invading fleet never fired a shot. Their hulls aged 1,000 years in seconds. Their engines unraveled. By the time the broadcast ceased, the fleet had become a debris field orbiting Saturn. Survivors, if any, had forgotten who they were. The story had overwritten them. In the Galactic Senate, this event became known as the Saturn Rewrite. Panic gripped the outer systems. The Council called for cognitive firewalls, psionic no zones, and temporal quarantine. But containment was a fiction. Even thinking about humans posed risk. Academic institutions issued memory wipes for those who studied Earth. Some chose self-exile rather than risk cognitive contamination. A faction of researchers proposed a radical theory. Humans were not violating physics. They were reasserting a truer version of it. That reality as known was a compromised framework, and human cognition was a reboot mechanism. Their dreams weren't fantasies. They were memory corrections from a prior state of existence. A reality before time, before rules. The implications were too vast. If true, then humans weren't reshaping reality. They were restoring it. One incident made the hypothesis unavoidable. On the edge of the universe, where dark matter flowed into the abyss beyond space, a research platform observed a breach, a nothingness that consumed sensors. When a human technician entered the observation deck, the breach filled with stars, new galaxies, new laws. The void became space. When questioned, he said, "It looked empty." I felt it shouldn't be. The void obeyed his feeling. The council's stance shifted from fear to reverence. Quiet factions emerged, worshipping human cognition as divine recursion. Pilgrims traveled to Earth in secret, hoping to be seen, to be remembered, to be imagined. A cult of thought-walkers formed among the Zalari, who believed proximity to humans enabled access to the original code of creation. Governments outlawed these cults, but enforcement failed. Dreams could not be policed. Earth remained unaware, or perhaps chose to be. Within the soul system, human civilization bloomed in impossible ways. Skyscrapers that reshaped themselves based on emotional needs. Music that altered gravitational fields. Cities that aged backward during festivals. To humans, these were artistic expressions. To the galaxy, they were events of world-altering significance. At the galactic core, the singularity accords were drafted. The core argument: if humans ever became aware of what they were, they might overwrite the galaxy in a single breath, not from intent, but from perception. Their ignorance was the final safeguard. The accords passed unanimously, yet dissidents rose. A Zalari mystic named Yenavara defected from her species' ruling council. She had spent a decade on Earth posing as a philosopher. Her writings detailed the resonance between human will and subquantum harmonics. She believed humans were evolving. Their thoughts were becoming less individual and more unified. A metamind forming without coordination. A civilization whose consensus could command physics itself. The Uric government declared her a terrorist. Her followers became nomads, carrying fragments of human dreams etched in crystal memory stones. Where they passed, flowers grew in barren stone. Stars flared. Ancient machines reactivated after eons of silence. Galactic civilization began to fracture. Fear became awe. Borders tightened. Research on humans became classified at the highest levels. Yet rogue scientists continued. One group, calling themselves the architects, managed to simulate a human-like cognitive waveform. The experiment lasted 41 seconds. The facility inverted. Space turned inside out. Rescue crews found researchers alive but transformed. Speaking in recursive loops, eyes filled with starlight, hands emitting thermal resonance with no heat source. The architects were absorbed into the dream. No recovery was possible. The site became a pilgrimage point. It was said that if one slept there, they would dream the origin of time. Some species began altering their own minds in imitation of humans. Neuroplasticity surgeries, chaos thought exposure, controlled dream infections. Most resulted in madness, but a few, very few, experienced enlightenment. They described a presence watching from within, a sense of being dreamed by something kind. The rare survivors called it the sleeper. Debates ignited. Was the sleeper a human? Was it all of them? Or was it something they were becoming? An evolutionary threshold passed in sleep, unseen and inevitable? The final tipping point came without warning. A star in Sector QX, 771, went nova, except it hadn't. Every probe, every observer, every recording agreed. The star was stable. But millions reported memories of the supernova. Artifacts appeared, burned wreckage, shattered satellites, even radiation traces. The only common factor, a single human child had dreamed of it. When questioned, the child said, I thought the star was lonely. I wanted it to shine brighter. The memory had shaped a branch of reality not selected for manifestation, but close enough to bleed through. The council convened again. For the first time, they considered departure, not exile of humans, but evacuation of the galaxy. Could life continue elsewhere beyond the reach of their minds? Could a civilization exist unimagined by them? Or had the moment passed where such separation was even possible? The vote failed. There was no consensus, because some already felt the shift. Physics didn't fully obey them anymore. They obeyed it through the humans. Where Earth's influence touched, causality behaved differently. Not broken, but malleable, fluid. And the humans still hadn't noticed. Or had they? Some believed they had. That the myths seeded across the stars weren't accidents. That the stories, poems, and songs were conversation. A gentle one, a reassurance. That humans were trying to keep the galaxy calm, not control it. Just share it, which was worse. Because if true, then the humans had not only become reality's editors, they were its curators. And they were trying to soothe an entire universe afraid of them. A universe that could no longer exist without them.